Deafrowe with Deafrowe TV, and I'm back again with another review. And this week's review is going to be episode 4 of one of my favorite series, Neverwhere, called Blackfriars. Uh, in this episode, as you can see here, the commentary starts off with Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandermarsh telling you their side of things, so to speak, of what's going on in the London below here. And yeah, before I get started on this review, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell so you'll see episodes 5 and 6, which are the final two episodes coming up next. And let's get started on episode 4 of Neverwhere, called Blackfriars. Alright, like I said, this is just Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandermar pretty much sharing information they know about what's going on. And then we enter episode 4, Blackfriars, as you can see here. And we start off with Mr. Croup here is talking to the Marquis de Carabas, and Marquis is trying to get information out of him by uh, basically basically trying to trade information for this statue that Mr. Croup is very interested in, and it's like some very rare thousands of year old statue that Mr. Croup wants. And in exchange for information and an hour's head start, the Marquis de Carabas is trying to get the information out of them. He doesn't get too much out of them in the way of information that he would actually use, but he does get a little bit, and then therefore exchanges the information for the thing and then runs off. Then we head back over to Dorr and Mayhew, and they're talking to the angel Islington that they finally made it to, going through the Angelise, which was the portrait that they used as a doorway at the museum. And you find out through Islington that you can only use that doorway one time. Once you use it that one time, you have to come in the long and hard way to get to him again. He tells them this because he sends them on a mission, essentially. But before I get on that, at the very beginning here, he shares like a little bit of wine with them, and the wine is supposedly like this 40,000 year old wine from Atlantis. Because apparently the angel Islington is the overseer of Atlantis, and when Atlantis disappeared, or went bye bye, as punishment, he was made the overseer of London below, basically like this paradoxical area of Earth, because he didn't do such a good job with Atlantis. And he's sharing with Dor and Mayhew the last bit of wine that he has from Atlantis, and it's like this glowing green, very potent wine. And of course, they drink it, not ever, they're basically talking about tastes completely different from anything that they've ever had before. And he starts to tell him about his friendship with Dor's father and all this other stuff, and what he could do to fix the issues that are going on with London below, including helping Dor's father realize his dream, which was to bring the London below together. And he says he thinks he can do it if he can get the key to this door that supposedly leads to heaven, and he can figure. Well, he doesn't really tell him that outright, but that's the gist of it. He basically says behind this doorway is where I can figure things out, set things straight, but he needs the key. So anyway, and we come back to Marquis de Carabas. He's still talking to Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandermar. Hands him the statue and runs off because he's trying to, like, he wasn't really able to get the information that he really wanted. And we cut back the door and Mayhew with the angel Islington. He's telling him, he's basically putting on a front with them, in my opinion. So yeah, we go back, and here's the part that's interesting right here. If I can go back, so the Angel Islington says, he sends him on the mission to get the key from the Blackfriars, which are the keepers of the key of the door that he needs to open. And as you can see here, Islington gives him like a little statue that looks just like the one that the Marquis de Carabas found in her father's study that he put on his jacket. But now Dora has a version of the same little statuette thing. It's like a little bull. And the Angel Islington tells her, this is what you're going to need to get back to me without being harmed. And basically, what it is, you find out later. I'll tell you right now. But its statue is like a pass to get through the maze without having to come across the bull, the beast of London below, basically. And that little trinket allows you to pass through without having any issues with them or running across them and getting killed. And that's the whole reason. He's like, you're going to have to come the long way around to get back to me, and this is the way you get through there. So then he disappears them, sends them back, and they end up on this barn area in the London below, and it happens to belong to the Seven Sisters, and the one that ends up is Serpentine or Serpentina or something like that. Anyway, she tells her, since you're all friends of Hunter, which is the lady right there in the gold that is supposed to be the bodyguard, she's like, I will not harm you as long as you're friends of Hunter. Hunter is my friend, or, this kind of deal. Because apparently Serpentina has a reputation about just killing off whoever shows up at her doorstep. Anyway, Mr. Vandemar right here is tracking down the Marquis de Carabas because they supposedly gave him an hour head start, where they really did, and they just kind of followed him and waited for an hour to jump on him. And that's what they do. They knock him out real quick, and then they take him off. And we cut back to Mayhew and Dora with Serpentina. I think the name is Serpentina. I could be saying it wrong. Serpentina. It's Serpentine. Julie T. Wallace, who's the large lady playing Serpentine. Anyway, she begins to talk about, and she's very blunt in the way she talks. And she's talking to Dora about her father and say, how's your father doing? He had this weird idea, this stupid idea, this, idiotic idea of bringing the London below together and becoming peaceful. And she goes, well, how is your father doing? And Dora's like, well, he's dead. He's like, see, I told you so. She doesn't like skip a beat. Kind of a mean, what's it, whatever. But anyway, she gives Mayhew like this because he's got like a bad hangover, and Mayhew is kind of weirded out by the whole thing, and he doesn't really want to drink it, but he does anyway because Serpentine she tells him again, you're friends of Hunter and you're my guest. I would never harm you as long as you're friends of Hunter. And that's kind of what happens. He drinks it down and whatever. And then we cut to the Old Bailey. Old Bailey, all of a sudden, the little box that he was told to look after by the Marquis de Carabas is starting to glow and make noise. And he's realizing that the Marquis de Carabas is in trouble. And then we cut back to Mr. Krupp and Mr. Vandemar, and they're basically torturing the Marquis de Carabas for the fun of it. I mean, they're not even like, they're just really being, sick and sadistic assassins that they are. They've been told by their employer to stand down from Dora and Mayhew. And so they decided to take those frustrations on the Marquis de Carabas, who was just there trying to, weed out the information, figure out who is employing them. And finally, we see Hunter, Mayhew, and Dora making their way out of Serpentine's area. And they're talking about why Hunter was getting the spear from Serpentine, because apparently Hunter has her own idea of what she wants to be doing. And she apparently has killed the alligators from underground New York and a bear in underground Russia, and now she is after the beast of London below, the bull. And she's basically the reason she got the spear from Serpentine is to take on the London below beast and kill it. That was her prime objective. The being a bodyguard is just a side hustle pretty much at this point for her. Anyway, we'll keep going here. And yeah, she explains this whole ordeal. She said, "I'd rather I either kill it or I die trying to kill it." And then of course we come back to Mr. Croup and Mr. Vanderbar, and they're a Marquis de Carabas wakes up and just spits in Mr. Croup's eye, like basically antagonizing him and messing with him, and why they're torturing him. Anyway, now they're making their way to the Blackfriars, which are right here. Machine gun carrying Blackfriars. Anyway, to get in at first, they have to solve the Hunter ends up having to fight one of them on the outside. So, first things first. First person fights. The next objective. So Hunter wins the fight. Then the next thing that happens is one of the Blackfriars does a riddle, and Dor figures out the riddle and solves the riddle. And then the third thing that you have to do is go through what the Blackfriars call the Ordeal. And there's only one person left to do the Ordeal, and that's Mayhew. And basically what the Blackfriars tell him is like, look, she's already fought us. She's figured out the clue or the riddle. He's the only one left, and he has to do the Ordeal. And Mayhew's like, all right, I'll do this Ordeal, whatever. He's not thinking much of it, not really understanding what's really at stake until he gets inside and sees all the pictures on this wall. And the wall is called the wall of those who failed. They're pretty blunt about what exactly it is. So you take so there's like several like pictures spanning decades and decades, centuries and centuries back of people who have tried and failed to get the key from the Blackfriars by going through the ordeal in order to get the key. So you can see here, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And he's like, oh shit. Like, what did I get myself into? And so the one of the friars, the oldest friar here, is telling him, is like, look, just before we start this ordeal, would you like some tea? And Mayhew's like, I'd rather just get on with the ordeal. I'm ready to get this over with, or whatever. And he's like, whatever you say, you do what you want to do. And so they take him through the door and for the ordeal. And this ordeal is basically him having to deal with his own psyche and his own inhibitions, his own self doubt, and everything else. And whether what he's been seeing in London Below is real or not, or whether he's been hallucinating this whole time, I mean, it really messes with your head. He starts seeing people from his time in London Above and all this other stuff. And it gets to the point where the suggestions are that he should just jump off and kill himself in this. It's crazy. I mean, he gets to the point where he almost cracks, and he almost does, And he talks about the friends that he has in London Below, and of course his mind is playing tricks on him and sending in people that are supposedly his friends to him and he's basically talking to himself the whole time. And his mind is telling him you don't really have any friends down here or whatever. And you can see this little sign behind it, like this little suggestions: end it all, be a man, do it yourself, do yourself in. I mean, it's kind of crazy stuff. Well, the whole thing about Mind the Gap before, when they were down there before, and he's hallucinating this whole part right now, but as he's fixing to act like he's jumping in front of a train to kill himself, he reaches out and he sees the bracelet on his hand or on his arm, which was Anastasia's bracelet. And Anastasia was his first friend in the London below that actually sacrificed her life in order to get him across Knight's Bridge. And he remembers that was entirely a real event. And he sees the bracelet because he picked up the bracelet and put it on his wrist in remembrance of her being his first friend in the London below. And as he's reaching out to jump out in front of this subway train or whatever, and basically commits suicide of the mind, and then the real body would think it's real suicide, and he actually does die in real life by thinking that he dies in his mind. And what happens is when he goes to reach out, he sees that bracelet around his wrist and realizes everything's been real. And he did have a friend, the friend that was willing to sacrifice herself to get him across Knight's Bridge, and he was worth it. And he realizes his self-worth and realizes that everything he's been doing in London below is a real thing. And he snaps out of the ordeal. At first, the friars think he's dead, but the one friar looks down at him and he's like, "No, he's still alive." He's like, and then the friar's like, "Well, just pick up his body and set him somewhere until he finally passes away." And Mayhew's like, "I'd rather you not do that." And he starts waking up, and the friar's like, "Oh crap, he's passed." And then Mayhew's like, I feel like I should have that tea now." And the friar's like, "Well, will do." And as he's walking out to get the tea with the friars, the one friar leans back and said, "Don't you want your key?" He's like, "Oh yeah." The whole ordeal took so much out of him that he even forgot what he was there for. But he knows what he is, that it's all real, and he had made actual friends that were willing to sacrifice their life for him in this London below, which is a lot more than what he had in London above, which is kind of what his mind was trying to go through. It's like, man, these people down here seem to care more about me than the people that I associated with up there. But anyway, and so he passed the ordeal. He gets the key to the door that they need to go back to Islington with. And then the Blackfriars are sending them off, and they're like, "Well," and then they're kind of standing around like, "What do we do now? We're the keepers of the key, and now we don't have a key anymore." And they kind of just like, "Well, we'll think of something." Then we cut back to Islington, and Islington is walking around his little containment area, I guess you could call it. It's like he's put there for a reason. And we find out who Islington really is. Islington is the one behind everything because he's the one calling up Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandermar and giving them the orders. As you can see here, he's talking to them through like a transient mirror or something through the phone. And Islington tells him, "It's like, do what you want to the Marquis de Carabas. I don't give a crap about him, but leave Dora alone. Let her make her way back here with the key because he wants that key." And Mr. Croup is like, "Will do." So they're just happy they get to kill somebody at this point, and it's Marquis de Carabas. And so they kind of take that and go with it. And now the fourth episode in, that the Angel Islington is the one behind this entire ordeal, this entire killing Dora's father and disrupting the peace even further of London below. And now he wants Dora left alone because now he knows Dora has the key, and she needs to make it back to him safe in order to get that door open that he wants to open. And so yeah, they basically decide to kill Marquis de Carabas, and that is the end of episode 4, called Blackfriars. Now, like I said before, if you want to watch this entire series, and you can watch it on, I want to say it's either Pluto or Tubi TV, the app, and you can watch it for free with commercials, of course. Or you can rent or buy it on Amazon Prime. I think streaming, of course, and it's worth the watch. Definitely worth the watch. There's so many little things. Like there was one thing that I left out. I'll tell you about now. They're one of the conversations that Dora is having with Mayhew in this episode while they're just walking along to the Blackfriars. Dora is explaining to Mayhew that there are bubbles of time in the London below that never change. And they accumulated so much over time that there's different areas in the London below that you can go that are in completely different eras of time, and they go back thousands and thousands of years because of the amount of time that has accumulated in one area. And it's all kinds of crazy stuff in London below. And the more Dor tells Mayhew about London below, the more Mayhew becomes more interested in what's going on in London below, and the more he just doesn't really give a crap of what's going on in London above. Which is what kind of the whole when they lead him into that ordeal, he's kind of like shedding that London above persona away and taking on this new persona of Mayhew of London below. That's my opinion. I'm not sure that's what, Neil Gaiman was wanting to portray, but that's just the way I saw it. So, but yeah, that's my review. One of my favorites. Like I said, this is one of my favorite series. I'll be reviewing episode 5 and 6 coming up. And that's my review of episode 4 called Blackfriars. And this is me, Deafrowe, out.